From Washington, this is VOA News. Heavy fighting erupts in Libya's main eastern city, and Ukraine's president condemns rebel-held votes in the country's east. I'm Michael Lipin, reporting from Washington. In eastern Libya, pro-government forces have attacked Islamist militants occupying the city of Benghazi. Heavy shelling set parts of the city ablaze on Monday, and black smoke rose above its central district. A Libyan army spokesman said the aim of the offensive is to clear the Benghazi area of armed Islamist groups. The Libyan army called on residents to evacuate the commercial district of Saberi near the Benghazi port, warning that militants had barricaded themselves among civilians. The battle is part of a wider offensive launched 2 weeks ago by the Libyan army against Islamic militants in the country. The militants have controlled most of Benghazi for the past 4 months. Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko has denounced elections held on Sunday in separatist-controlled eastern Ukraine, calling them a farce at gunpoint conducted by bandits, terrorists, and interventionists. Mr. Poroshenko, speaking Monday on national television, called the pro-Russian rebel-organized elections a gross violation of a 2-month-old ceasefire deal. He also said he will hold emergency talks on Tuesday with his security chiefs to plan new ways of dealing with the ongoing uprisings near the Russian border. Sunday's balloting aimed to fill pro-Russian legislative bodies in the Russian-speaking eastern Ukrainian regions of Luhansk and Donetsk. The United Nations, the United States, and the European Union all have rejected the votes and said they will not recognize the outcome. You're listening to VOA News. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry held a meeting on Monday with ambassadors from countries backing a U.S.-led coalition against Islamic State militants in Iraq and Syria. VOA State Department correspondent Scott Stearns has more.
State Department spokeswoman Jen Psaki says Secretary Kerry met with about 60 Washington-based ambassadors from countries involved in the fight against Islamic State militants because diplomacy is an important part of the coalition.
The session is an opportunity for coalition partners to reaffirm shared efforts in the coalition, discuss ways in which we can integrate our contributions to coalition efforts, and review ways to accelerate and increase our joint operations.
In addition to airstrikes against Islamic State targets, coalition members are working to train Iraqi security forces and Syrian rebels, restrict Islamic State financing, cut off its supply of foreign fighters, and undermine its ideological appeal. Secretary Kerry's talks Monday with ambassadors from coalition countries follows President Obama's meeting last month with coalition defense chiefs, at which he said this will be a long-term campaign with periods of progress and setbacks. Scott Stearns, VOA News at the State Department.
The African Union has given Burkina Faso's military a 2-week ultimatum to return power to a civilian transitional government. The AU Peace and Security Council said Monday it will not impose sanctions on Burkina Faso for now, but it said the military must hand power to a civilian government by the deadline or else. Burkina Faso's interim military ruler, Lieutenant Colonel Isaac Zida, met with diplomats on Monday, a day after holding talks with religious leaders. News agencies quote Zida as saying the military will cede power to a transitional body led by a consensus leader. He did not give a time frame for the transition. There were no reports of unrest in the capital, Ouagadougou. On Sunday, demonstrators called on Mr. Zida to step down. One person was killed when soldiers fired on a crowd outside the state television station. Border guards from Pakistan and India have gone ahead with a flag-lowering ceremony at their main border post a day after a suicide attack there killed 55 people and wounded more than 100 others. Authorities initially had planned to cancel Monday's ceremony at the Wagah crossing due to the attack. But they later decided to proceed, and hundreds of men, women, and children came to watch. A Pakistani Army Corps commander said the high turnout proved that terrorists cannot lower the spirit of the nation. Well, you can find more on those stories by checking our website at voanews.com. I'm Michael Lipin reporting from Washington.
That's the latest world news from VOA.